before the sun never set on the British Empire, before Genghis Khan swept across the endless steppe like a storm, before Rome extended its influence to encircle the Mediterranean Sea. There was something older than Rome, older than Imperial Britain, older than the Mongol thunder. There was ancient Assyria, considered by many historians to be the first true empire in world history. Assyria didn't just conquer land, it pioneered the very structure of empire, the systems, the administration, the military innovation, the psychological warfare. At its height in the 7th century BCE, the Assyrian Empire stretched across what is now modern Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and parts of Turkey, Iran, and Egypt, from the mountains of Anatolia to the deserts near the Nile, from trade routes in the east to Mediterranean shores in the west. But Assyria was not only a machine of conquest. Its wonders included a vast royal library, one of the most ambitious collections of knowledge the ancient world had ever seen. It also built elaborate botanical and zoological parks, bringing exotic plants and animals from across its territories into carefully designed royal gardens. An empire of steel and scholarship. Yet the story of Assyria's rise to dominance began centuries earlier, long before it became a superpower. In the late Bronze Age, in a city called Ashur. Ashur was a thriving trading center for tin and textiles, strategically located along the Tigris River in northern Iraq. Merchants traveled in and out of the city. Caravans moved goods across regions. Trade routes connected distant lands. But Ashur was more than a commercial hub. It shared its name with a god, Ashur, believed to embody the spirit of the city itself. Over time, that god would come to represent not just the city, but the destiny of an empire. For the administration-minded Assyrians, politics and religion were inseparable. The king ruled not just as a political leader, but as the earthly representative of divine authority. Around 1300 BCE, a high priest named Ashur made a bold and transformative decision. He took the title of king, and with that single shift in authority, he initiated a long-standing tradition of military campaigns. This marked the transition of Assyria from a city-state into a territorial state, no longer just a single city, now a power overseeing multiple lands, cultures, and peoples, under one centralized administration. For the next 150 years, Assyria expanded steadily. It extended its reach, its secure borders. It thrived. But in the 12th century BCE, a mysterious catastrophe, still debated by archaeologists, swept across much of the eastern Mediterranean world. Civilizations collapsed. Trade networks fractured. Cities were abandoned. And Assyria lost much of its territory. For many powers, this would have meant permanent decline. But Assyria endured. A few hundred years later, its kings launched a new era of conquest. This time, however, something had changed. They refined their administration into something far more systematic, more organized, more deliberate. They built an empire designed not just to conquer, but to govern. The Assyrians became known as military innovators. They mastered siege warfare. They developed advanced engineering tactics to breach fortified cities. And they cultivated a fearsome reputation. Cruel punishments, including impalement and flaying, were inflicted on those who resisted, whether exaggerated or not. The image was effective. Fear became a weapon. Yet military strength alone did not explain their success. One of their most impactful strategies was deportation. Local populations were relocated across the empire to serve different economic and administrative purposes. By shifting people away from their homelands, Assyria weakened local loyalties and reduced the risk of rebellion. It was harsh, it was strategic, and it worked. After conquest came infrastructure. Cities were rebuilt or newly constructed. Royal roads connected distant provinces. Communication improved. Administration became more efficient. Movement of goods, armies, and messages became faster and more reliable. Often, when a new king rose to power, He established a new capital. Each new center of rule featured grand palaces and towering temples. Walls were lavishly decorated with carved reliefs, depicting military victories and royal hunts. These were not just decorations. They were statements of power. Although kings claimed absolute authority, an intricate network of officials, provincial governors, courtiers, and scholars helped administer the vast territory. And at least one woman, Samuramat, ruled the kingdom, a rare occurrence in the ancient Near East. Despite the brutal image presented in their inscriptions, Assyrian rulers were deeply invested in culture, particularly the traditions of Babylonia to the south. Babylonia had long been a cultural leader, dating back to the origins of writing. At the end of the 4th millennium BC, Assyria saw itself not merely as conqueror, but as inheritor and protector of this ancient tradition. Scholars were supported in disciplines ranging from medicine to magic. The capital city of Nineveh became home to elaborate parks and gardens, housing plants and animals gathered from across the empire. One of Assyria's final rulers, Ashurbanipal, actively sent scholars throughout Babylonia to collect and copy ancient literary texts. His great library consisted of thousands of clay tablets, inscribed in cuneiform, in Akkadian and Sumerian. When Nineveh was sacked in 612 BCE, the library was buried beneath destruction. For centuries, it remained lost. But in the 19th century, archaeological excavations uncovered these tablets. Because of that rediscovery, masterpieces such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Babylonian creation epic survive today. After centuries of dominance, the Assyrian Empire fell to the Babylonians and Medes. Between 612 and 609 BCE, its cities were destroyed, its political structure dismantled, but its legacy endured. The Assyrians pioneered administrative efficiency, infrastructure planning, and strategic governance. They set a template that later empires, from Rome to Britain and beyond, would follow, which raises an important question. Across cultures and continents, do all empires share common patterns? Is rise and fall inevitable? Or are there lessons buried in the past that still shape the present? Because Assyria's story is not just ancient history, it is the origin story of empire itself.